In November of 1966, a steelworker named Frank, working the open hearth at the Inland Steel Mill in East Chicago, Indiana, walked onto a Jeep dealer lot on his Saturday off and put down the full sticker price on a brand new Wagoneer. The price on the window read $2,968. $2,968. That same Wagoneer in the same trim, restored and running, sold at a Mecum auction last spring for $142,000. A new Cadillac Escalade today, the so-called luxury family hauler of our era, will cost you north of $110,000 by the time the dealer finishes adding fees. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average repair bill on a 2020 and newer luxury SUV now exceeds $1,600 per visit. Today I'm going to show you 3 luxury SUVs built in the golden years that any senior with a wrench, a driveway, and a Saturday morning can keep alive for almost nothing. One of them was tested by the U.S. Army and refused to die in the Mojave Desert. Another was the favorite of a sitting president. And the third, well, the third is the one your neighbor probably sold for scrap in 1989 because Detroit's marketing departments, led by men like Roger Smith over at General Motors, spent a decade convincing America that older meant worse. They were lying. Subscribe right now if you believe a man should still be able to fix his own truck in his own garage, because these 3 machines prove he can. Let's begin the countdown. Number 3, the 1979 Jeep Wagoneer Limited. By the late 70s, the Wagoneer Limited had become the quiet badge of the American country gentleman. You'd see it parked outside cattle auctions in Amarillo, Texas, outside duck blinds in Stuttgart, Arkansas, in the gravel, lots of Methodist churches across rural Georgia. It wasn't bought by Manhattan socialites. It was bought by ranchers, by small-town doctors, by veterans who came back from Korea, opened a hardware store, and finally had enough saved to buy something with leather seats. The 1979 Limited stickered at $10,755 new. The average American manufacturing wage that year, per Bureau of Labor Statistics records, was about $270 a week. So yes, it was a stretch, but it was a stretch that lasted 30 years instead of 5. You turn the key on a frosted October morning, and that AMC 360 V8 catches on the second crank. A deep, unhurried rumble that you can feel through the steering column, the smell of cold vinyl and old gear oil. Your hand on a wheel that's been worn smooth by 20 winters. Popular Mechanics tested the Wagoneer's Quadra-Track 4-wheel drive system in 1978 and reported it required no driver input, no locking hubs, no transfer case lever, and survived a 200-hour continuous duty test in mud and sand without a single failure. The 360 V8 routinely passes 300,000 miles with nothing more than timing chains and water pumps. What killed it? The Grand Cherokee. Chrysler, after buying AMC in 1987, decided unibody crossovers with computer-controlled everything were the future. They replaced a truck a farmer could rebuild on a tailgate with an SUV that needs a dealer scan tool to change a headlight. We didn't trade up. We traded away the right to own our own machines. Number 2, the 1977 Ford Bronco Ranger. The first generation Bronco, the one that ran from 1966 through 1977, was the truck of the working hunter. The Forest Service Ranger, the volunteer fire chief in towns too small to have a paid department. You saw them in Bozeman, Montana, in Bangor, Maine, parked at trailheads in the Smoky Mountains with a thermos of coffee on the dash. The Ranger trim came with chrome bumpers, cloth inserts on the seats, and a wood grain dash applique that, on a payday Friday in 1977, made a man with grease under his fingernails feel like he'd finally arrived. New, the 1977 Bronco Ranger ran about $6,200. The average weekly wage for a non-supervisory worker in 1977, Bureau of Labor Statistics again, was around $190. A solid year and a half of work, but it was a truck a man could keep until he handed the keys to his grandson. The 302 V8 turning over in the dark before deer season, frost on the windshield. The heater takes 4 miles to warm up and you don't care. The smell of canvas, of WD-40, of a thermos lid that's screwed on 1,000 mornings just like this one. Motor Trend, in a 1976 long-term test, recorded the Bronco's Dana 44 front axle, Ford 9-inch rear surviving 40,000 miles of unpaved logging roads in Oregon with zero driveline service. The 9-inch rear end is the most rebuilt, most parts-supported axle in American automotive history. You can still buy every single component brand new from any farm and fleet store in the country. What killed it? Ford's own decision in 1978 to bloat the Bronco onto the F-Series chassis, then later the Explorer. They wanted soccer mothers, not foresters. They wanted lease customers, not lifetime owners. They got what they wanted, and we lost a truck that could be fixed with a socket set and a Haynes manual. Now, before we get to the top one, you need to hear something. In 1985, General Motors circulated an internal product planning document, later cited in trade press hearings, that explicitly described the goal of a 7-year ownership horizon for new vehicles. 7 years. That was the target. They didn't want trucks lasting 25 years anymore. They didn't want a Wagoneer in the family for 3 generations. The men in suits in Detroit, Roger Smith at General Motors, the marketing committees at Ford, Chrysler sat in conference rooms and decided on purpose that durability was bad for business. They flooded the magazines, Car and Driver, Motor Trend, Road and Track with advertising dollars tied to coverage of the newest models. They lobbied Washington for emissions and safety regulations written in such a way that small independent garages couldn't compete. They closed the parts catalogs on older vehicles. They trained a generation of dealers to tell customers that any truck older than 10 years was a liability. And the worst part is, it worked. By 1995, the average American believed his grandfather's Wagoneer was a rust bucket and his new leased Tahoe was progress. It wasn't progress, it was a transfer of wealth. From your driveway to their quarterly earnings report? Remember that as we get to number one. Number one, the 1,972 Chevrolet Suburban. There it is. The most American luxury SUV ever built, and most of you have a memory tied to one, whether you realize it or not. Maybe it was your uncle's hauling a camper to the Ozarks every July. Maybe it was the one your church owned, the green and white one that took the youth group to summer camp outside Branson, Missouri. Maybe your father drove one for the county, painted white with a magnetic decal on the door. The 1,972 Suburban in the custom deluxe trim with the 350 V8 and the 3 4-ton chassis was the truck that built rural America's mobility for a generation. Plumbers in Tulsa drove them. Cattle haulers in Nebraska drove them. Pastors in West Virginia drove them. New. In 1972, a fully optioned Suburban with air conditioning rolled out the door for around $4,400. The average weekly American wage that year was $154 per Bureau of Labor Statistics, so roughly 7 months of gross pay for a truck that statistically would still be running when Reagan was president, when Clinton was president, when George W. was president. There are documented Suburbans in Nebraska and Wyoming with over 460,000 miles on the original block, rebuilt twice, still pulling stock trailers. You climb in on a July afternoon outside Grand Island, Nebraska. The vinyl bench seat is hot enough to burn through denim. The smell of sun-baked dust through the wing vent. The 350 fires up with that familiar small block bark, settles into a lope you can feel in your sternum, and you put your left elbow on the open window frame, head out toward the highway with a horse trailer behind you and a thermos of black coffee between your knees. What modern people cannot understand is that this truck was designed to be fixed by its owner. Every bolt is standard SAE. Every gasket is still available at any NAPA in any town in this country. The Points style ignition can be diagnosed with a paperclip and a test light. The 4-barrel quadrajet carburetor, mocked for decades by import enthusiasts, has been rebuilt by farmers on kitchen tables for 50 years. Motor Trend in 1972 called the Suburban the only vehicle in America that genuinely earns the word indestructible. The U.S. Army tested militarized variants of the same chassis in 1973 at Aberdeen Proving Ground and reported drivetrain durability exceeding all foreign competitors by a factor of 3. What killed it? Not the truck itself. The Suburban name still exists, but the truck does not. Today's Suburban is a computerized, air-suspended, $80,000 mall cruiser that requires a subscription to unlock the heated seats. Chevrolet, under decades of marketing pressure, slowly transformed an honest working machine into a status object for suburban professionals who will never tow a horse trailer in their lives. The truck that built rural America was hollowed out and sold back to us with the same badge and none of the bones. And that, more than anything, is the loss, not the metal, the relationship, the understanding that a man and his truck were partners, and that partnership was supposed to last a lifetime. I want to tell you something honest. 2 summers ago, I drove a 1,974 Suburban from a farm outside Stillwater, Oklahoma, back to my own driveway, 600 miles, no air conditioning, no cruise control, a leak in the heater core that filled the cab with the smell of antifreeze every time I touched the brakes, and it was the best 600 miles I've driven in 20 years. Because every sound that truck made I understood. Every vibration meant something I could name. So here's your challenge this weekend. Go on Marketplace, go on Craigslist, go to the bulletin board at the feed store, and find one of these 3 trucks listed within 200 miles of your house. Don't buy it, just go look at it, put your hand on the fender, listen to it run, remember what a vehicle is supposed to sound like before computers got involved, and then come back here and tell me in the comments which one of these your father or your grandfather drove. I want to know which states still remember. I want to know if there's still a Wagoneer behind a barn in Vermont, a Bronco in a garage in Idaho, a Suburban under a tarp in Tennessee, because these trucks were never just trucks. They were the proof that working Americans could own, repair, and outlast anything Detroit threw at them. They were mechanical independents made of steel, and as long as one of them is still running in your county, that independence isn't dead yet.